All right. So, what's up, friends? I thought it'd be fun to share with you something that I've been using for, my goodness, almost 2 years now in order to describe how to grow in faith. What does it mean to have a spirituality that's evolving? And in order to do that, I'm going to draw on my iPad uh, three chairs to help explain what this is. And to be honest, I found this incredibly liberating myself. So let's do this. So early in life, let's be honest, there is very little interest in listening to how other people say you should be doing faith. So let's draw this by use of a chair. Here we go. So that's a chair. I know it's wonderful, right? But let's imagine someone sitting on the ground. Maybe it's a kid, a toddler, and they're saying, I refuse to sit in that chair. Okay. Maybe you've even seen a little kid do that. They would prefer to sit on the ground and do what they want on their own rather than sit in the chair, even though it might be more comfortable, even though it's normal to sit in a chair, even at the admonition of their parents. They're like, please just sit in the chair. And like, no, I'm going to sit on the ground. Okay. But then at a certain stage of life, you start to sit in a chair. And you learn what is it? Okay, you sit like this, you put your feet forward, you have your hands on your knees. And so, at the encouragement and admonition of parents or authority figures, you learn how to sit in a chair. Fantastic. Cool. Now, what are these first two stages called? Well, we can call them pre conventional faith. This is when someone wants to define faith for themselves. They refuse to be a part of anything else, especially something that's structured and stable. And I refuse. I'm going to do what I want. I do it like this. And so that would be an understanding of pre conventional faith. However, when we sit in a chair like this, let's call that, you guessed it, conventional faith. This is when we submit to a tradition, become a part of a tradition, and we adhere to the expected norms and vocabulary and behavior and even clothing, the rituals, the services, all of that. That's when we partake in a tradition. And to be honest, it is an upgrade from sitting on the floor and having no chair to sit in. But that would be an upgrade from pre-conventional faith to conventional. But here's the thing. It can be very difficult to sit in the chair, even though you might learn to get along with other people. Like, oh, look, there's other people sitting in their tradition just the same way as I am. So if I sit in this tradition the same way that they do, I'm one of them. We are collective together. We are all doing this. And so there can be, rather than the solo-ness, the solitude, the loneliness of pre-conventional faith and doing it on your own, then you have community, you have connection, you have other people that you can sit with, and you do the tradition together. And for a time, that actually might be the next thing that you need to do. However, you might at a certain point look over and see something fascinating. You might look over and see someone doing this. Standing on the chair. And so you might sit there and be like, wait, we're all sitting in the chairs, but that person's standing on the chair? I didn't even know that was an option. I can stand on the chair? And that person over there is like, yeah, come and stand on the chair. You can see so much more of the world. And guess what? When you stand up on the chair, you can see beyond the people in the chairs around you because they might be blocking the view. You know, it's an analogy. But you might be able to see beyond them. Or let's say there's a fence. Let's say this is outside and in a yard. While you're seated on the ground or in conventional faith, you maybe can't see outside the fence. But if you stand on the tradition in a unique and different way, you might be able to look over the fence and see even larger of a world. Perhaps you'll see people of other faith traditions standing on their chair looking back over the fence. Hey, what's up? How are you? And it's because all the highest and most mature saints, mystics, and hermits and holy people of the world's traditions, when they're standing on their tradition, standing on their chair, they can see each other and they wink at each other. And so let's call this post-conventional faith. The thing is, when you are done being seated in a chair, let's say there's a usual expectation of conformity, you need to look and talk and play the part of somebody that knows how to sit in the chair as these people sit in their chair. Okay. But then you see someone standing on their chair and using the tradition in a unique way that helps them to see a larger world. And you're like, I want to do that. You might, if you're surrounded by people that are in conventional faith and religion, those people might love that and they might be exactly where they need to be, but they might not want you to stand on your chair. They might want to pull you back down. They might exclude you, saying you're not actually doing the chair thing as we do, so you're no longer one of us. But actually, from up there, you can see everyone seated in their traditions. You can see the people that aren't in any tradition yet. And you can see other people that are standing on their tradition looking back, be like, yeah, I see it too. You see it too? And this is the struggle. When we are ready to grow, sometimes it's difficult to find people to grow with us. So when you have a pre-conventional faith, you might be lonely, but you might find it incredibly heartwarming to find a community that does conventional faith together. But then when you've started to outgrow that, you might go into a different kind of loneliness. Not quite like the pre-conventional faith, it's the post. Because sometimes when you stand on your tradition in a unique way, especially in a way that the authority figures told you not to, it can be a lonely experience. But that's why, even though it's a lonely experience, when you meet someone else who stands on their tradition, it can be such a beautiful salve. You're like, oh my gosh, it's so wonderful. Now, let's think about this in reference to the Gospel of John. Okay? Conventional means the agreed upon practices and habits and behaviors and rituals, vocabulary of a select group. They agree upon what they're going to do and what they're going to be about. That is the definition of conventional. In John chapter 3, we have Nicodemus. He's a member of the Pharisees. He probably has already outgrown pre-conventional faith and has been in conventional faith for quite some time. And he's starting to feel the limitations of the tradition and what it defines are the conventions that he should live by. He's getting a paycheck, he's probably getting housing, he's getting notoriety, and he has a social circle as a result of it. And even then, he's starting to seemingly feel some of the limitations of conventional faith. And so I actually think Nicodemus looks over and sees Jesus standing on his tradition, Judaism. And I think Nicodemus is starting to say, oh, you can stand on the tradition like that? He's interpreting it differently. He's using it in a different way. I was told to sit in this tradition. He's standing on the tradition to have a bigger view, to say even more profound things. And at the fear of exclusion, Nicodemus goes and he meets Jesus at night. Because when you're a part of conventional faith and you start flirting with post-conventional faith, it can lead to some difficult conversations. And perhaps people might say, "You're not one of us anymore." And so I think Nicodemus went to Jesus at night because he's on this line. He's starting to outgrow the conventional faith that he had received and lived within and worked within. And now he's like, I think there might be something more to this. What if it's that? And of course, the conversation ends with Jesus saying, "You're a teacher of the law and you didn't know that it was actually all about these things?" Come on. Come on. How awesome is that? And so, over the past couple of years, I've had conversations with people. And I'll be honest, in the back of my mind, I use the three chairs. And I think to myself, this person is refusing to sit in any chair. Or this person is happy in their conventional faith. Okay, that's fine. But at a certain point, they might feel some of its limitations and limits, and therefore might want to outgrow them. Now, what we need to do is realize that we always have to keep the door open for people to grow from pre-conventional faith into conventional, and to grow even beyond conventional faith into post-conventional faith. I think this is Nicodemus. I think this is Jesus. I can even see this in John chapter 4. There's the woman at the well. And she's saying, I don't know about conventional faith, but it's all I know. I don't worship on Mount Jerusalem. I'm a worship on Mount Chorazim. I'm not one of you guys. And so she's recognizing we are of different conventions. Her name is Photine, according to church tradition in John chapter 4. But Jesus comes to her and interprets the faith in a new way that's larger, because he's standing on his chair. He's standing upon Judaism to say something new and larger. And she is enamored with it because she, in some ways, gets permission from Jesus to outgrow her conventional faith, to stand upon it in a brand new way, to reinterpret what she thought she knew, but to reinterpret it in a way that allowed her freedom. There was a universality to it. There was a limitlessness. It wasn't based on location or convention. It was something beyond all of that. So, this is why I wanted to share this with you. These three chairs, let's stage them. 1, 2, and 3. I find them to be utterly helpful, especially when I start to have questions for myself about bouncing back and forth between conventional and post-conventional faith. I am sincerely convinced that most of the saints and hermits and mystics and holy fools and sages and desert mothers and fathers of the church, they were often speaking from post-conventional faith. But to people that were in authority in conventional faith, they would look at them and say they're heretics. You're not sitting in your chair. We told you to sit in your chair. But that's where the better life is. And I think it might be a necessary part of life to go through each of these stages. So do your best to recognize when you're shifting from one to another. Do your best to hold the door open for other people as they want to or are able to go on to the next stage. And I don't know, man. I hope this was helpful. I hope you can stand on your tradition and look over the fence and see a lot of very spiritually mature people winking back at each other. Okay? So I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, I hope you share it with somebody. But otherwise, I hope it helps. Peace.